We're here at LiveONETV. We're with James Behr.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Well, I think it's amazing. You have an autopsy report which is supposed to give a post-mortem what went wrong with the election, why we lost, and even the DNC head, Ken Martin, said it was kind of a train wreck, and he was apologizing for it. And I was just doing a brief review on some of the things that they talked about. Harris did not distance herself from Biden, didn't say anything about his sleeping condition, didn't attack Trump enough, and instead of saying what they did say, which wasn't very useful, which is why the Democrat insiders, including the DNC head, complained, I'm struck by all the things they didn't say, what's going wrong with the party, and why Democratic polls are strikingly low, considering that they're headed to a midterm election where usually you make gains. One thing that strikes me, if I might say, the things that should have been in the report is, why is it that you didn't start paying more attention to the polls? When you watch the convention, could you do better than say the opposition was crazy? And, the polls indicate that the country was not happy with the 10 or 12 million people who came across the border. They were not happy with the fact that the former president apparently was slipping in his ability. And, I don't like to belittle him. I'm a registered Democrat, but, the country was shocked when they saw that infamous debate between then President Biden and Trump, and the mixed up impression that he gave, and it kind of confirmed all the things that people were saying and were not believing. And that's also part of what happened with the autopsy, that the question was raised whether he should have stepped aside earlier and allowed for a proper primary and election, and instead everyone had to rush into having Harris become the nominee, instead of allowing a normal primary system and letting the voters decide. Lots of problems.
Well, okay, that's quite an autopsy. I put my sympathies with the voters and the families and the workers and with everyday Americans. That's where my sympathies are going to go. And I didn't think that either party went through a valid process of bringing a popular candidate forward. And I don't see a valid candidate coming forward in the next election in terms of J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio. But to go back before we get to them, because I don't think they have a chance. But it was a sad state of affairs. Both the Democrats and the Republicans, they both swear an oath to defend and uphold the Constitution.
Right.
And therefore, they should be getting along with each other. And to watch them fight with each other, to me, is very, very painful when it doesn't seem they're being reasonable or fair with each other and they end up catcalling. What do you think about DOGE?
Department of Government Efficiency.
Sure.
And it raises a few issues. Yesterday being Memorial Day, we had a tendency in this country to forget what Memorial Day was about. It was to show respect to the 400,000 men and women who died in World War II, the 55,000 in Vietnam. And we have lost that sense of party. In the 1980s and 90s, you had Senator Inouye from Hawaii, and Bob Dole from Kansas, who both had serious arm injuries from World War II.
I remember.
Tip O'Neill used to go to the White House and talk. He was, of course, the House Speaker, the Democrat who used to get along very well with then President Reagan. Right. And the point is, we've got congressmen and senators who've completely lost sense of caring more about the party than they do about the country.
Mm-hmm.
And that brings me back to, I'd rather not predict who's going to do well in 2 years, rather than saying the autopsy report is supposed to make the point, what is going to be a better candidate? And although Democrats hate the president, and I don't want to say why, but it raises a question, are we hating good policies because we hate the man? Even the polls show that Democrats were not happy with the 10 or 12 million people who crossed the border. And one of the things that I think is lost in the autopsy report is, what issues should you stand for? Mm-hmm. What are Democrats missing? They're not willing to talk about important issues. I mean, what about the support for Israel? I think that hurt the election, but I don't even want to go there because that's a tough subject. But the immigration is an example that, are we opposing the president just because we hate the man? Even with the war in Iran right now, are you opposing the war just because you hate the president, as opposed to everyone raising the question, what kind of world will we have if Iran, which killed 35,000 of its own citizens back in January because they wanted democracy like us, do we really want a world where people like that have a nuclear weapon? And we have to start thinking what's for the best of the United States, as the post-World War II generation did, and instead of people just fighting each other and hating each other or threatening each other because they disagree. What do you think?
Well, I understand a lot of people feel that way, and I'm not sure that I should talk them out of it. Is it too much to ask that we also put on into the conversation the other countries that have nuclear weapons, and that they also remove them from their arsenals? Do you think that's possible, or do you think that's that cat is out of the bag long ago? Once the Russians and the British, and pretty much automatically, that once we built it, the British also got a hold of the technology, and so did the French. And now there's, I think, 11 other countries sitting on nuclear weapons. You don't suppose it would be time to have a conversation about having all of them be removed from other countries?
Well, that's an excellent point. And of course, even in the days of Nixon, we started Assault 1, Assault 2 in the 1980s start. I mean, of course we should have arms reductions. Of course we'd like to remove it. The last thing we need is to have more countries that are going to have nuclear weapons. And of course, our relations with Russia right now are poisonous because of what's going on in Ukraine. And one of the things that is lost, which may have been what Putin and our president talked about when he was in Alaska, is, well, yeah, we've got a war going on, and yeah, we are supporting a proxy government in Ukraine, but we also have to deal with the nuclear arms treaties. We don't want them to expire, and we now have to include China in the picture because they're developing quite an arsenal, and apparently China's not willing to negotiate. So yeah, we're taking our eye off the ball. We should get back to arms regulations and reductions so that we don't have some damn error making going on and suddenly something is launched.
I see.
What do you think?
Well, I do think you're right. There's no reason why this isn't a great opportunity for Russia and America to be great allies. And we could be great allies.
Don't go too fast.
No?
What's going on in Ukraine, the brutality of what Russia's doing there.
Yeah.
But you know, one thing I find interesting is that when Nixon created détente and sent Kissinger as now security advisor and Secretary of State to speak to Brezhnev and try to build a relationship with Russia, and when he went to China, it was considered a great thing. We're building relationships. Now, when the president talks to the president of China, I should say dictator in Russia, oh, he's betraying the country. And the answer is, this is getting out of control. Whether you approve of the president or not, talking to these people is the only way we can ever make progress. A famous quote from the Count of Monte Cristo: keep your friends close to the vest and keep your enemies even closer.